What's up? I'm John Middlekauff, the host of the 3 and Out podcast, and you can find it below in the description. Also, you're watching this on the Volumes YouTube channel. I need you to subscribe right now. Share it with your friends. Back at it with my man, and he's red hot. He's 5-1 on the season. Stuckey, you can find him on the Action Network podcast. You can find him all over the place on Twitter. He's a gambling fanatic. You can also find him talking big bets on campus. He lives in Lexington, Kentucky, just a football power now. Used to be known as a basketball area, but I might say Mark Stoops is past Calipari. He has got a big bar downtown, so you can, I wouldn't say drinks are on him. He'll charge you, but if you're having a good time, you never know. Stuckey, what's happening?
What's going on, brother? No, drinks. You mentioned this podcast or my podcast. Come visit. Drinks are always on me.
What's the bar, if anyone's ever in Lexington?
2 of them. My wife runs part owner of Stagger Inn and Two Keys, which just opened again. It was Two Keys Tavern was a staple here for like 55 years, and unfortunately had to close during the pandemic, but has recently just reopened. That's more of that's like a pure college bar, but it's massive. There's outdoor dance. There's a huge sports portion, and then Stagger downtown is more of a upper 20s, 30s. Well, I'm in my 30s. Sports bar, Saturday nights, like live country band, stuff like that. So yeah, if you're ever in town, hit me up on Twitter.
Let's dive right in. You're 5-1 on this show. I actually watched because I look up last week on Sunday. Rams are kicking their ass. You had the Falcons 10.5. Coming into the season, I thought the Falcons suck. Threw on that game second half yesterday. They're blocking punts. Mariota looks pretty capable. Drake London's making some plays. Obviously, Kyle Pitts. I'm actually I wouldn't say bullish on Atlanta, but they might be better than I thought. Playing Seattle, which I think it's fair to say they treated week 1 like the Super Bowl. That might be the peak of their season. Atlanta at Seattle. The Seattle crowd, what they gave Russell Wilson, I don't know if we ever see that again this season. Safe to say that you like Atlanta this week at Seattle?
Yeah, I do. I think this Atlanta team is going to be feisty against the spread all year. Obviously got really lucky last week with that epic backdoor cover against the Rams. But, I think I like about Mariota, it brings you some mobility. You don't have the best offensive line. And, you have some talented pieces, Patterson, Pitts, and I really like Drake London. So this offense is not completely inept. The defense isn't great, but you do have good corners, and you have one of the best corners in the NFL. So that's like a good foundation to start with. It's also important against the Seahawks, who haven't been able to run the ball at all. You have corners that can cover their receivers, and you have a defense coordinator in Dean Pease, who historically in very complex defense, a lot of disguised looks, and historically his teams have really, really struggled in year 1 and just trying to pick up what he's trying to do. And then there's a massive improvement in year 2. So you could see that defense, despite a lack of talent, especially on the front 7, take a big step forward here. You have good corners. You can go a long way. And this Seattle team, it's just void of talent. I mean, outside of the Texans, it's the worst team in the NFL, in my opinion. I mean, they're starting a backup quarterback. And a lot of people have that Broncos game in their mind. The Broncos gained 440 yards. The Seahawks had 250 and won that game because the Broncos could not figure out how to score from the 1 yard line over and over again.
Still can't, Stuckey. I don't know if you've seen their
still can't. Yeah, still can't. So they were just going up and down the field, and they dominated that game. And then you see Seattle last week against San Francisco, and yeah, I mean they could dunk, and that's about all they could do. They couldn't run the ball, couldn't get any stops. This defense is bad. The offensive line is bad. You had a couple good receivers, but Atlanta actually matches up well in that department. So, yeah, I think the Falcons get it done here, pick up their first win of the season on the road.
Okay, let's go Minnesota hosting Detroit. Obviously, I think we've learned a lesson that we knew, but it just got hammered home. Cousins, primetime game, be leery, be worried, but the guy thrives, and I mean thrives for us West Coasters, 10 a.m. And, you look up, he's got 3 or 4 touchdowns, one of the top fantasy points his team's crushing. Now, I know you like the Falcons. I've looked at Detroit a lot like you look at Atlanta. I think they're a feisty team. You give me anything over a field goal against a team that I don't view as like a power, I think I'm going to take them just because, one, they don't quit, so they can have some of the backdoor cover style, Atlanta style. And I said coming in, is Minnesota probably going to be a wild card team? Yeah, but I think they got some flaws. Their secondary is very questionable. But Cousins in the morning, he's usually much better. But I like this Detroit team. I mean, they can score. They just feel a lot better. I like Detroit in the points here.
Yeah, I mean, I can see how someone could make a case for Detroit here, but I think we're getting Minnesota cheap after what we saw on Monday night at home. Still one of the best home field advantages in the NFL. And you mentioned Cousins being better in the daytime. He also historically has been great bouncing back from a loss. He's 34-21 against the spread in his career. That's 62% after a straight up loss. 20-10 against the spread after he failed to cover by a touchdown or more in the previous week. So when he really doesn't live up to expectations the next week, he does usually bounce back. Also, this is a really good matchup for the Vikings offense. It's, and the Eagles did run a lot of man on third down last week, but the Eagles run predominantly zone. And if you look at Kirk Cousins' numbers historically, he shreds man, and really struggles against zone defenses. This Lions team has generally, over the past year plus, been a man press team. They just don't have the corner. I mean, the defense is really bad. They have a couple young, intriguing pieces with Hutchinson. Malcolm Rodriguez at linebacker might have been the steal of the draft, but the secondary is still a mess. They shouldn't be able to cover anyone on this Minnesota team. And when I look back at, last year, Minnesota was favored by 10 at home against the Lions. Now the Lions are better. I agree. And all they do is cover. And this team just gets in every backdoor possible when needed. And I think Campbell's now 13-6 against the spread. But the Vikings were -10 last year without Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook was out didn't play because he was hurt. Now the Lions are better, but I think so are the Vikings from a coaching standpoint. They also had a lot of injuries on defense last year, but I love the hire of O'Connell. I think they'll run a lot more efficient offense. He'll make a lot more, plus EV decisions as far as like when to kick, when to go for it, things like that. So I love the hire of him. I think it's a good matchup for the Minnesota offense. And I think we're getting them cheap here at 6. I think you can find a 5.5, but the Lions are, look, I was on the Lions last week. I'm probably going to be on them a bunch. So I agree with you for the most part and don't fault you for being on them here. Even if the Vikings are up 10 late, I'm sure the Lions are going to go down the field and lose by 3. So I'll be scared there, but I think it's just a good time to buy Minnesota.
I think we got agreement on this next game. It's fair to say Tennessee, I don't blame them necessarily for trading A.J. Brown. They're in a tough spot. Their quarterback, they were stuck money-wise. Now, do I ever like trading star players? No, but clearly they thought they knew him better than anyone else, and it's kind of backfired through 2 games, and he's clearly a dominant player, and they miss him, and they look a shell of themselves. The Raiders, while 0-2 like the Titans, if you've watched them, they clearly are not bad, right? I mean, they have a lot of players on a lot of different positions. They have a star wide receiver. Their quarterback solid, even though he fucked up in the first game, throwing those picks in the second half, but they do not look like a 5 or 6 win team. But the one thing that makes me nervous about the Raiders is just Josh McDaniels. I saw Derek Carr and Crosby and Renfro. Like, I know those guys can win. We obviously know Devontae Adams can win. The question mark is the head coach. It's just a fact, even though we all think like, oh, it should be an easier transition. He's done it before. He'll battle back. Last week was an embarrassment for them. Some of that's Kyler Murray pulling, what out of his butt, running around, but still. I'm with you here, though. I would take the Raiders and the points. The one thing that would make me a little nervous, though, is historically, the Raiders traveling far, these early morning games can be a little hit or miss in Carr's career. But they're at the point now for a team that if they're going to want to make the playoffs in the AFC, like you ain't going to battle back 0-3 or 1-5. Like this is must-win territory immediately.
Yeah, this is they have to have this game. And if you're in if you're in the AFC South, you could still win the division.
What would you guess wins the AFC South? 7 wins, maybe?
7 or 8 wins. I think the Jags might actually do it. This Titans team is, it's bad. And look, they've had they were pretty fortunate last year to get the 1 seed. They were winning a ton of close games. But if you look at the roster, losing A.J. Brown is huge. Now you lose your left tackle, who's presumably out, and Taylor Lewan. His backup last week gave up more pressures in relief than Lewan had in the 9 previous games. So what else? Then you're relying on rookie receivers. Your left tackle's hurt. You lost your top edge rusher before the season started. Your cornerback group is very rookie reliant. These are all the most important positions in the NFL. So what do you have? You have Derrick Henry, who looks like a shell of himself. A lot of miles on that car. And the offensive line is all young, and now you lost your best offensive lineman. Raiders' run defense has been good this week. And the thing you fear about the Raiders is, okay, their corners can be exploited a little bit, but Tennessee's not going to do that. And the Raiders' strength is their edge rush. Well, now you're going up against backup tackle, and you might be moving a rookie guard over to tackle. They're going to be able to get after the quarterback here. Henry doesn't look like he's capable of just winning this game on his own anymore. And on the other side, Carr should get enough time. This Tennessee defense, especially without Landry, isn't going to get a ton of pressure. And the weak point of the Raiders probably team is their offensive line. Don't have to worry about that as much against Tennessee. And then they're going to have enormous plus matchups on the outside. I mean, you saw what Diggs did last week. They had undrafted rookie Trey Avery trying to cover him. So their secondary is also a mess. So, yeah, I mean, you look at Tennessee, they have not looked good in any phase. I was low on them coming into the year. The Raiders could have easily beat the Chargers on the road. In week 1, they actually had more yards per play. The game was basically a coin flip. And then they took their foot off the gas against Arizona, up 20-0 at the half. They were 38-0 in franchise history when leading by 20+ at the half. And then it took a bunch of flukes at the end, right? You have the 2-point conversion, the review, the fumble, return for a touchdown. They could easily be 2-0. And then we'd be having a whole different conversation about the Raiders here. There's no other conversation to have about the Titans right now, in my opinion, other than when are we going to see Malik Willis, if ever? Because I think it's just all downhill for the Titans. So, yeah, it's a spot where it's like two desperate teams. Neither is covered yet. They're both 0-2, but I trust the Raiders a lot more, and I think they have major matchup advantages on both sides of the ball.
How about the fade of September, which I think is already kind of sticking out like a sore thumb this week, huh?
Yeah, it's got to be the Colts here. They are, and if you look at any trend over the past 30 years in the NFL, if you just without doing anything else, blindly bet the teams that are 0-2, or winless, I should say, because the Colts did tie winless and haven't covered a game yet in week 3 as an underdog, you're going to come out way on top. And underdogs after a shutout, by the way, in the NFL, just keep that in mind. Whenever a team gets shut out in the NFL and they're an underdog the next week, 63% over the past 25 years. Teams off a shutout loss as 3+ point underdogs in a non-division game, 51-13-3 since 1990. Just speaks to the week to week. This team got shut out by the Jags. They stink. Now look, the Colts have not looked good. They should.
Is that against the spread or straight up?
Against the spread. 51-13-3. Look, the Colts, they haven't looked great, but this look ahead line was 2.5-3, and now it got up to 7 at one point and gets 6 out there now. But the Colts haven't been playing with their full deck of receivers. They should get back. Haven't been playing with the leader of their defense, who they should get back here. And teams are just never as bad as they look in the NFL. You just have to keep that in mind. They're coming home opener, desperate team, playing a Chiefs team that, by the way, has not been great at covering these spreads. Mahomes 10, I think he's 10-14-1 against the spread as a touchdown. We're 6+ point favorite in his career. And this Chiefs defense is still extremely vulnerable. I think Taylor can get going here. The Colts will be able to sustain drives, control the clock, move the ball at will on the ground. They'll have some of their receivers back. And this Chiefs offense still has questions without Tyreek Hill. Like the perception of the Chiefs, I think, is way too high right now. They went in week 1 and beat an Arizona team playing with their scout team. They had, 8 starters out. It was an exhibition game. The next week, the Chargers dropped 2 picks, wide open picks. They have 2 others that get overturned on BS flags. And the Chiefs offense did not look great. The Chargers easily could have, I think should have won that game. So it's not like the Chiefs have been some juggernaut so far. Now going on the road and this line goes up 4 to 5 points from the look ahead line. I think this is a prime spot to get the Colts. It's just these week 3 winless teams as home dogs. Just keep that in mind in the future. It doesn't mean they'll cover. Like a lot of times when I give out these stats, it's like 60, 62% historically. So of course there's going to be some that lose. And then sometimes there's just teams that are way worse than anyone anticipated. And the market still hasn't caught up.
Which the Colts could be a 5-win team.
Could be the Colts, but I'm willing to take a stab here on the Colts in this spot on Frank Reich, who is 9-3-1 against the spread as an underdog of over a field goal in his career.
Well, Stuckey, enjoy your Tito's Red Bull this weekend, and we will talk soon.
Absolutely. Good luck, brother.
Thanks for watching 3 and Out. You can check out the podcast below in the description, and make sure you subscribe right now to the Volumes YouTube channel.